In this video, we are going to see how we can create simple and elegant forms in React using Material UI, Formik and Yup. Full Stack Simplified. My name is Prashun and I'm here to share some amazing contents related to full stack. If that sounds interesting, don't forget to subscribe this channel for more videos like this. As you can see on my screen, we are going to create this simple form having some input fields and some validation logics. So let me quickly give you a demo by writing an email and a name and obviously the password. And as soon as I'm going to click on this sign up button, you can see the values of all text fields are going to be logged in the console. So as you can see here, we are getting all the values. And now I've also incorporated some of the validation rules for each of the text fields. And I'm going to show you by writing an invalid email. And as soon as we press on the next text field, we get to see an invalid email message. That's the error message. So I'm going to show you how to do all of these things. It's a very easy technique by following and using Formik and Yup validation library in React. So without any further ado, let's get started. So for getting started, I have created a simple create React app starter project, nothing fancy here. And I've also started my local server so that we can see the changes we made in our code in the UI. But before moving forward, I'm going to remove some of the unused files which are not required here at this moment. So I'm going to remove app.css and test and logo, report vitals. Yeah, that's it. And once we remove all these, we are going to see that our app has crashed, but obviously we have to edit all these things. We have to remove all these imports. And I'm going to clean all these things. And yes, that's it. And in index.js, we are going to remove this import and also these lines. And now we can see, obviously, let's refresh again. And we can see a simple blank app, and for the testing purpose we can see if it is working. Yeah, it's working fine. So now I'm quickly going to install the dependencies which are required for this project. So I'm going to install 3 of the libraries, that is Material UI, Formik and Yup. So we're going to install using npm, and let's wait until it gets installed. Okay, so as you can see, all our dependencies are now installed, and now we are going to create a form component. But instead of writing all the codes in app.js, I prefer making a separate folder for them, that is component. And inside the component, we are going to create a material form.js. Yes, and we are going to write all the code and logics over here for the form part. So let's simply first create const material So here I have created a simple function component, React function component, and I'm going to export this function. Now we are going to return a simple div for the timing, and we can write here form for the timing. And now, export default. And now I'm going to import this material form in our app.js. So I'm quickly going to write import material form, and the VS Code has done this for me. And we are simply going to insert the component over here. And let's save it. And yeah, we can see here that we have got the form text over here. Okay, now we are going to import some of the components from the packages we just installed. So I'm going to show you how we are going to use all these components for this form. And quickly, let's move into this div, and I'm going to write here Formik. And this Formik component basically gives us a function with many useful properties which we are going to use, and I'm going to show you how we can use all this property to make our form very simple and elegant and very easy to use. So this function is going to return this form component from the Formik library, and Here we are going to have three input fields as we can see in our demo. So we are going to use field, and this will be obviously a self-closing component, and we are going to use this for 3 times as we have 3 fields. And here I am also using a button which is from the material UI, and I'm going to simply say sign up. So as you can see, we have got a 3D text field and a sign up button. Also, obviously the styles are not as we have seen in our demo, but we are quickly going to fix all those things. So before customizing our fields and buttons, I'm simply going to add a class name to this div, and that will be simply a material form. And I'm going to paste some of the styles in index.css, and that will be some basic styling which you can follow up. And I'm not going to explain much on the styling, but yeah, obviously I'll just give the link to this code, the GitHub link to this code, and you can check out the styles. It's a basic simple styles, so that we need to center the form div and basic background color. That's it. And we are not going to revisit this CSS thing anytime further in this whole video. So now let's first start by customizing our form field, and obviously I'm going to use some of the props to customize our fields. And if you imagine how I'm going to write all these props, it's simple. I have followed their documentation, and you can do that same, and I'll leave all the links to the documentation of all the libraries that we are using in this project, so that you can check this out, and maybe you can deep dive into them and make something wonderful things out of them. So I'll just start writing some of the props, and I'll start with name, and name will be email, and again the type, that will be email too. And I'm using an as property which is provided by the Formik, and here we can use any third-party component library or anything. So for this field, and for this field I'm going to use the material text field. So I'm going to write as text field, and I'm going to pass the props for this text field, that is its variant, that will be outlined. And obviously the color, I'm going to choose the primary color of the material UI, that is a bluish kind of color. And I'm going to provide a label to this input field with that will be email with capital E, obviously. And also I'm going to I want this field to take up whole width of the container. So I'm passing this full width prop, and I'm simply going to save this. And you can see the style of the input fields have changed. Now I'm simply going to copy and paste these props to this another field, and the last one also, and we are going to accordingly change according to the fields we want. So I want here name, and the type will be name again, and the variant will be outline primary, that's okay, and the label will be name again. So let's save this, and yeah, it has changed. And for the password, we are going to use the name as password, the type will be password obviously, and label will be password with a capital P. So yeah, that's it. And now as you can see, these text fields do not have any margins. So what I'm doing is I'm using a simple box component which is provided again by material UI, so that we can simply use it here, because I don't want to go in CSS and style them accordingly. So what I'm doing is here I'm using a box component and providing a height of 16. Let's see. Yeah, that looks fine. Maybe we can increase it or maybe decrease it. Yeah, let's try 14 maybe. Yeah, and it looks good for me. And let's copy and paste this thing here and here. So as you can see, we have got some spacing between the text fields, and now it looks better than before, obviously. Next, we are going to obviously style our button, and similarly this button is from the material UI component part, material UI library, and I'm going to write some of the props. So first prop will be the type, that is submit, obviously, because this is the button we are going to use to submit the form. And I'm going to use the variant, that will be contained, And the next prop will be color. Again, this will be a primary color, and I'm going to use the size property for this button, and I'm going to use the large size for that. And as you can see, the button has changed and exactly what we wanted. And obviously above the button I'm going to increase the spacing a little bit so that it looks better. Yeah, that's it. So this is all about the customization of the form, and I think we have got the same thing. Yeah, so now what we're going to do is we are going to write the logic for submitting a form and validating it. So let's see how we are going to do that. Formik requires some of the props to work and submit the form and for validation. The first prop which we are going to use here is initial values. These are the initial values of all the text fields which we are using in this form. So what we are going to do is I'm going to create an object, or which we can say const initial values, and I'm going to provide the initial values for all the three text fields, that is our email. And we have to keep in mind that we use the same key as we are using in the name for the fields. So we are using name, email, name and password. So here email, and it will be an empty string by default, and we don't need to provide this quotes obviously. And for the next we are going name, and this will be also an empty string, and again we have password, which is also going to be an empty string. So that's it. And our status failed because we haven't provided any initial value, so I'm going to simply paste here, and yeah, that should work. Yeah, okay. So we have given our first prop, that is the initial values, and the second thing which we're going to do is it provides an on submit prop which we can use to submit our form. So on submit provides us two things. One is the values and another is the Formik helper property, and we are going to see how we are going to use these things. So we call this Formik helpers, and this is a function, and this is going to return some values. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're just going to let's console these values. What are these values? Let's see in our console. Okay, so let me open my DevTools, and yeah, so I'm going to go to console, and that's it. I'm making a little bigger so that we can see the form obviously. Now I'm going to write something, anything, and there is no validation right now. I'm just going to write anything and I get sign up. So we can see we're getting the values of all the text fields in the console. So yeah, so our on submit binding is working fine. So let's see what this does, what this Formik helpers does. So what we are going to do is when we press the submit sign up button, we are going to reset the form. So this Formik helper has a reset function, reset form function with it, which helps us reset the form. So now you can see if I click on sign up, it is automatically going to clear the form, clear all the text fields of the form. So as you can see, and yeah, that is how it is done. It is as simple as that. So now we are getting the values, we are able to reset the form. Now the next thing which we are going to do is the validation. And for that we are going to use the Yup validation form, and I'll see it in action. To implement validation in form, we are going to use the validation schema prop, which is provided by the Formik again, and it accepts an object, and this object we have imported it from the Yup library, and obviously we are going to give the name key, that is our email, and we are going to write some simple rules to validate our email field. So what I want is the email should be a string, and it is obviously required, so I want it required, and I can pass a custom error message if I want to. Like if I don't want, then yep, we'll provide a basic default error message for that, but I want to provide a customized error message. So I want to write please enter email. Next, I'm going to write that this is a required field and obviously this is an email. So it is going to check if the string which I provided is an email or not. So if it is not, we are again going to write a custom error message, that is, it will say invalid email. So that's it for the email. And again, what we're going to do is we are going to do the same thing for name. So name again will be a string and it is a required field, and again we are going to say please enter name. And for this case, I want that name should be a minimum of 2 characters. So it's up to you. It's not mandatory, obviously, but for showing you how we can also use the minimum and maximum number of characters, I'm going to say min of 2, and then I'm going to pass a custom error message that name too short, and that will be okay for the name validation. And finally we are going to validate a password. This will be again a string and obviously it is required, so I'm going to say required please enter password, and again we're gonna I want that the password should be of minimum 7 characters long, so I'm gonna say minimum of 7, and I'm going to enter any custom message. Suppose password should be minimum 7 characters. You can give any custom message you want, but for this demo purpose I'm giving this, and that's it for the validation. And now you can see that these will be validated and our form will have this validation rule incorporated. How we can check is, now we are going to use this function, and here we're going to destructure some of the values which are provided by the Formik. So first I'm going to destructure errors, and this is the property which will give the errors for all the text fields which we are using. So we are going to destructure the errors, and I'm going to write is valid. This is valid property. It will say if the form is valid or not, like it is ready to submit or not. And I'll use the touched. This touched property tells us if any particular text field has been touched or not. That is, if someone has clicked or not. So we are going to show the error message only when someone touches a particular text field, not before that. Not like I'm launching I'm getting in the page and user is seeing the error message by default. No, we are not going to do that. We're only going to do that once the user types and moves to the next field. So we are going to use the touched property given by the Formik, and again dirty. So dirty is again a property which helps us to know if the form has been edited or not. So we are going to use this for enabling and disabling our buttons. Sorry, the button. We have only one button, obviously. And so yeah, that's it. And these are the 4 value required for us. And now I'm going to show you a very smart thing which Material UI provides. So to show the error right below the text field. So I'm going to write error as. So I want to say the error. It takes a Boolean value. So I'm going to take errors. The errors dot email. So error object will contain an email field which will contain the error associated with the email field. So I know it's a little bit entangled, but the thing what I'm saying is that errors object which is provided by the Formik contains the error associated with each field. Maybe it is email name and password. So errors dot email will give us the error associated with the email field. So I want to check if it exists or not. So I'm using a Boolean over here. And I'm also going to check if Boolean that touched property, the touch property which we are getting from the Formik, and we are again using a touched email. So if our email field is touched, like if the user has touch the email field. So yeah, so here we can see that since we have touched, and it is giving it a red error color. And for the message part, the error message part, I'm going to use another property provided by the material UI, which is known as helper text. I'm going to write helper text, and this will be only will shown when the boolean of touched dot email is true, and then we are going to show the message. So simply I'm using the AND operator, and I'm going to say errors dot email. As simple as that. Now we can see that we are getting an please enter email, because we haven't entered any email. Now if I enter an invalid email, I'm getting that too here. As soon as I write the correct email, it goes away. So this is how easy it is to incorporate validation rules with Formik and Yup validation library. So I'm going to implement all these in all the text fields here. I'm just simply going to copy and paste, and then I'll be changing the values obviously. So here errors dot name. So here errors.name and touch.name, errors.name and touch.name. That's it. And for the password, we are also going to do the same thing by pasting password instead of name. And that is all with the validation. Yes guys, this is how simple we can implement validation in forms in React. And this is a very simple form which we are showing in a demo. But imagine if we have to manage forms with 10 to 15 fields. It becomes very difficult to manage forms and their validation. So helpers and Yup and the libraries, these are the things which helps us do it more efficient and a very easy manner. So now we are going to see how we are going to disable the button. So when we initially load the form, our button should be disabled. So here we are going to use a disabled prop, and it will be disabled by default. So we are going to use two things. If the form is not dirty, means anyone has not touched the form, so it will be disabled by default. Or if the form is not valid, so in both the cases the button will disable. So as soon as the forms is valid, then only the sign up button will be enabled, and then only the user can obviously sign up using this form. So we can see everything in action, and I'm again going to write simply a correct email, a name and a password, and as you can see, the sign up button is now enabled. If we just simply type a password which is less than 7 characters, we get an error, and so password should be minimum 7 characters. Similarly for the name, if I am going to use single character, it says name too short, and if I go on writing, it's okay. And yeah, that is all for this video guys. I hope you like the video, and if you have any questions, please write down in the comment section, and I'll try to answer them all. And also do not forget to check the descriptions for the link I have provided for the documentation of the libraries that we have used in this project, and also the GitHub link for this project. So thank you guys, and I'll be back with another video very soon. So stay tuned and subscribe this channel. Thank you.